Hello viewers, George here with another tutorial. This time I am making a tutorial about senior citizens, income tax, and how splitting pension works. So just a quick note, I do work for UFile, and this person here, Laurence Demers, is a fictional character um, used for training purposes, but we're going to start a new file. And we're going to create two fictitious senior citizens. So we start with the family head, meaning that is the principal taxpayer and the family group of a couple. So we can put a designation or you can skip it, and we'll just name him Henry, and the last name will be Dubois. And a fictional social insurance number is what we have here. Do not attempt to use it. Let's make sure he's a senior citizen. Give him a fictitious date of birth. And let's challenge ourselves and make the return a federal and Quebec return, which is a little bit more complicated to do because then you will have the pension split for federal and Quebec purposes. Marital status, we can either put the married or common law. There's really very little difference when it comes to tax matters with respect to those two statuses. No change, and in Quebec we have to notify the provincial government of the gender of the taxpayer. No change, and the address. That page is complete. We're now going into spousal interview type, and basically complete information is the recommended in the default, and then to add the spousal information, all we have to do is add spouse. We can do it at any time, but best to go in order and complete the basic information for the family head first. Next would be current address. We can give them a fictitious address, 1234 my street, my city, or we can even put Montreal, and Quebec, postal code. If the postal code you put was invalid, it will give you a warning. These are diagnostic messages, and as we complete the return, they disappear. They're very interactive. No need to answer those questions. In order to net file successfully, you do need a valid phone number. Again, this is a fictitious phone number. Continue onto the CRA questions. You can put either English or French. In our example, it will be English. Are you filing an income tax return with the CRA for the first time? No. Do you have foreign property in 2018 with a total cost of over $100,000? Now, the important thing to note here is this foreign property can be either abroad or, for example, it can be shares, U.S. shares held with a Canadian broker. So if that's not the case, you can go ahead and say no. If that is the case, you should put yes and declare it, because if for any reason they catch you, it can be a penalty of to $2,500 plus interest on that. Principal residence, no. We're not a diplomat or anything of the sort. Canadian citizenship, yes. You can register to vote through your tax return and be on the electoral list. And this is if you agree to the CRA e-services. You're encouraged to do so, but for simplicity's sake, I answered no here. Now Revenue Quebec has its own sets of questions. Is this the first year that you're filing? Of course not. Living alone, No, we have a spouse. Um, and if there is an involuntary separation, you could be living alone. But in this case, no. Accelerated refund, yes, if eligible, but after April 30th, folks, whatever you do, you won't be eligible. In order to qualify for this, you have to do a timely return. Uh, do you wish to apply for the Quebec Solidarity Tax Credit? Yes. And right off the bat, somewhere around here, you'll end up getting a page where you can get the questions. Pardon me. Quebec Tax Shield. Well, the family head claim it, and you can let Revenue Quebec calculate it because it involves some complexity with prior year numbers. So you can let that happen. Again, do you agree that Revenue Quebec to deposit? Uh, do you agree to have Revenue Quebec deposit your notice of assessment and, where applicable, the confirmation of your accelerated refund in a secure space reserved for you on my account? I answered no because of simplicity's sakes again, and no to this one again. We might get into another tutorial. Quebec prescription drug insurance plan. If you do, you can opt for whichever choice might be applicable to you. In my case, Mr. Dubois does not have anything except the Quebec plan. And to simplify matters as well, just go ahead and file jointly with respect to Schedule K. Okay, now Solidarity Tax Credit. That's an important credit that you can possibly qualify for. So go ahead and say yes, you do have a dwelling. Your principal residence was in Quebec on December 31st. Not located in a northern village for our sakes. And let's go ahead and say that this person was a tenant. So he received a Releve 31 from his landlord, and one at your name and the other at your spouse's name. Let's just say your name to keep things simple. Dwelling number. Okay, here we go. Number of tenants. Let's say 1. Did you have a spouse? Yes. And was his or her principal residence located? No. And we did live with our spouse. There we go. Next, net file questions. Just answer yes. If you have while you're using NetFile to submit a prior year federal return, no. Everything else is default. Autofill, we're not going to do that. Interview setup, most of the options are already configured for you, except as a senior citizen, this person is retired, does not have a T4, but he has a T4A, T4AOS. Might have a little bit of interest, and medical expenses. Now we can go ahead and type T4A, or click rather on T4A. Let's start by putting a little bit of old age security, and let's just estimate that to be that, and a little bit of supplement, let's say $1,200. Okay, and let's go back to pension income, and of course you are receiving the Quebec pension plan. Retirement benefit, let's say, I don't know, $12,800 over the course of the 12 prior months. Nothing else there. And in order to demonstrate how pension splitting works, we're going to have to give this taxpayer an annuity which is periodic. So normally you can split this pension if you are otherwise qualified for the pension income amount. So if it's a lump sum, chances are they won't qualify, but if it's a periodic registered pension plan, you receive an amount periodically. Um, you you most likely are able to split this amount with your spouse up to 50% of it. Uh, and normally, what UFile does is it chooses the most optimal amount for you. And let's just put a little bit of interest here. So let's say everything's being received by National Trust, a fictional bank. And interest is usually box 13. There you go. $650. And some medical expenses. Let's say you had some expensive medical expenses for dental purposes. So here I can put the date. Oops. And here you go. That should do the trick. And now we can go ahead and add the spouse. Miss Julie Dubois Charlevoix. There you go. Another fictitious social insurance number. Date of birth 13 12 1948, and province of course Quebec, female, yes to the address. And notice you can have the same address as your spouse but a different phone number. You can enter a different phone number if you choose the second option. No change since last year. Great. Now the spouse also has to answer her set of CRA and Revenue Quebec questions. Okay, English language, not filing for the first time, does not have income abroad or foreign income rather. No. Did not dispose of her principal residence. She's not a diplomat. That would forfeit some credits. How do I get there? Or get back to the CRA questions here. Maybe make the screen a little bit smaller so we can see everything. Okay, yes to the elections Canada or citizenship. Yeah, there you go. Again, for simplicity's sake only, we're responding no to the email notifications from the CRA. If you are at ease with e-file notifications, go ahead and select it. And now the Revenue Quebec questions. It's not our first filing. Yes, if eligible to accelerated. We already applied in the family head for the solidarity, so we can go ahead and say no there. No to these as well. And she was also under the Quebec drug insurance plan. We already answered yes in the spouse's file to filing jointly for Schedule K. In here, she won't be doing any prior years, so we're good. And all she received was a little bit of pension, so Social Security, Old Age Security rather. Yep, OAS for short. 687 and $1,200 net federal supplements. Yep. Yes, that's $1,200. And let's give her some retirement pension. I want to give her about 3,000 for the purposes of this example. And 12 months. Let's just make sure in Henry Dubois' slip. Yep, net federal supplements paid. Back to Julie. She has a little bit of of uh, Quebec pension plan, and she also had some investment income. So if you go to the interview and click on investment income here, we should be able to enter it here, and she had a little bit of dividends from the shares that her great uncle uh, gifted to her upon his death. So let's say, and she had some dividends, eligible dividends. All we need to do is put only the actual amount, and UFile will calculate the rest. So we'll put 1,000. So you can see that it will be grossed up automatically by UFile. Okay, so we pretty much completed her return. We can also put some medical expenses for her. She also had some dental fees, expensive dental fees. There you go. And notice there's no warnings or errors here. If we turn to Henry Dubois, same story. We click on review, summary, calculations were finished, unable to calculate the return, fix the errors. What errors do we have? A value of 0 is entered. It's not allowed. Click here to fix. Where did I enter that? There you go. And now the return has been calculated. They each owe money, as you can see here. We still have some messages. Good to check the messages. Okay, so if you're transmitting the return and you have a balance owing, you should tell Revenue Quebec when you plan on paying it. So if you are sending a check or going to the financial institution, they'll only issue the notice of assessment once they receive the payment. Amount of balance owing being enclosed, no payment, and here, no payment. We will pay at a later time. You're allowed to do that. Okay, let's go back to review the messages. And this will help us net file. So we are given a heads up on the optimization done by a UFile, where all the federal medical expenses for your family are being claimed by Henry Dubois. Same thing for Quebec, but Quebec, they are shared somehow through Schedule B. And the same thing goes for the spouse. So here we have a lot of green. There's a couple of tax tips down below. Tax credit for seniors, deduction for carrying expenses. All nice tips. Now let's take a look at the tax saving ideas in more detail. This is great. Here's an example of medical expenses that you may have missed. And these are just summaries. And notice what happened to her dividends. They were entered here. Chances are it was done because it's more beneficial. Well, let's take a look. Let's accept. And here's the UFile tax return, which you can save as a PDF or print. I recommend highly to do both, so you can keep a hard copy record and a soft copy at the same time. Of course, you will also should save it. There you go. Okay. Well, I'm not going to save it for now because this is just an example. So I like to usually go here and review the return before I send it. The $650 comes from his own interest, right? And Julie Dubois, and here's her dividends grossed up. Remember, we entered $1,000, so they grossed it up by 1.38%. Now, ordinarily, if she had only $9,000 and there was no pension split, she could technically take these dividends and declare them on Henry's return in order to maximize um, his spousal amount and claim the dividend tax credit. Now, in this case, since it's more beneficial to split the pension, and UFile has done that automatically, she has to declare her own dividends, and he will not be getting the spousal amount. So what I'm talking about is this. Remember, they are each claiming their own investment income. Here's his total pension, and he gets to deduct, that's the supplement, he gets to deduct 13,750 because this is the portion that will be declared by his spouse, the lower income taxpayer. So now he's only taxable on $34,087. And the spousal amount would appear on line 303 if his spouse had an income much lower than 11,809, her basic amount. I'm not sure if well, I don't think we show that calculation here, but it would show if they were entitled to it. And here is how the pension is split. Here, 13,750, which is 50% of 27,500, I believe. And on the Quebec return, it is schedule. Now, why do we have a work premium? It's 0. Right, that's good. And split pension on Schedule Q. Carry this amount on line 245 of your return. And basically, for federal, he owes $751. Quebec, he owes quite a bit more, $3,127. And Madame Dubois Charlevoix owes $312. And Quebec, she doesn't owe anything. Awesome. So the last step you need to do Once you've reviewed your return, you're confident that everything's great, um, everything's ready for filing. You have to go now to Federal Submission, file my return now, but agree to the terms. And you got to click this button to actually send the return. Same thing for Quebec. File my return. Now I'm not going to click on these things because this is a full version of the program, a working version of the program, and if I were to click on that button, I would be actually sending the return to the Quebec government, and on the other page to the federal. Same thing for Henry Dubois. Go to his netfile page, ready for filing, and you would have to agree to the terms and conditions and click on this button to send the return, and same thing here. So if you have any questions or comments, I'll kindly take them below, and I wish everybody a happy summer, and don't forget, getting ready for tax season is a year-round event. You should be gathering your donation slips and medical expenses at the very least. Thank you.